aesthetics. I tend to talk a little fast, particularly to be a Southern guy. But anyway, I do want to get through this. Our estheticians are in place, and let me remind you before I begin, but Sean and I were both instructors, and we've had to sit where you're sitting, and I see some of you standing because I can't stand to sit all day either. But I would tell you, this is verbatim exactly what you're seeing here. If you go on the website and download the candidate information bulletin, we don't change a word at all in this exam. So if you'll take that and present that to your students and have one of your instructors to be the examiner, one person to be the proctor, and the proctor is the person who reads the exam. They're in charge of the exam. And then let your candidate or your student do the work. Then when they come and hear all of this, it's not new. It's the same thing they've been hearing because you've gone through it, because it's not going to change. It stays word for word. We don't add anything to it. We don't take anything away from it. It is what it is. That being said, our candidates are told that they will prepare their work area. They're told that they will set up the universal supplies that they will use throughout the examination. They will also set up for the following sections of the examination: cleansing the face with product, exfoliating the face with product using implement or materials, and including towels, steaming, and massaging the face with product. You will prepare your client for services. That means that we need to drape that client as well. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 15 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 8 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. And so they are, here again, the minimum that they have to do is to disinfect that work area. A lot of estheticians like to put down a towel, like nail technicians, and then put their products and things on there. That's fine, but they absolutely have to disinfect that work area. So our examiner will be looking to see that they do disinfect all the work area with an EPA-registered disinfectant, that they sanitize their hands with product in English, and that those universal supplies are also labeled in English. They want to apply that protective covering both to the model's hair and to the body. Now, if you're teaching, and here again, we examine what you're teaching. So if you're using a turban, you're using a towel, you're using a plastic cap to drape, that's fine. We don't have an issue with that at all. But both of our textbooks, both Pivot Point and Milady, tell us that we need to sanitize our hands after touching and draping the hair. And then we can cover that décolleté area with a towel or a sheet or some type of covering that you've taught your student to do. Then, of course, we're always looking to see that items to be disinfected, any soiled linens and trash, are disposed of throughout that entire section. Now, when everybody has stepped back to indicate that they've finished, our proctor would say all candidates have indicated they have completed this section of the examination. We will now proceed. But if everybody hasn't stepped back, when the timer goes off, they will be told to please stop working. I'm not going to go through that every time, but I want you to get the feel that this is what's going to happen for the exam, okay? A typical setup, other than the items to be disinfected box on the table, I would never encourage that. Here again, I know Sean mentioned about putting a plastic liner or plastic bag in that paper bag that you're putting down there, or those containers. I would encourage that. I observed a cosmetology exam about a year or so ago. A young man threw the spray bottle into the paper bag that didn't have a liner. It began to leak onto a tile floor, and so he created an unsafe work environment, didn't he? Those where people are going to fall and that sort of thing, and those are the kinds of things that we would be looking for. Our next section is cleansing the face with product. It is a 10-minute procedure. You will perform cleansing of the face. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. Those verbal instructions are always reread twice, and then the candidates are told you may begin. Your examiner will be looking to see that the facial cleansing supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean, and we want them to cleanse the eye area completely, to cleanse the lip completely, and then distribute that cleanser over the entire face and cleanse the face. We want them then, of course, to remove that residual cleanser. Here again, the way that you've been taught, or the way that you're teaching. It could be with a cotton round. It could be with a 4x4 gauze. Whatever you guys are teaching, we just want them to cleanse those areas. No particular order. We do expect them to cleanse the eyes, and that could be with a cotton round. It could be with a disposable sponge or 4x4 gauze, if those are allowed in your state. Could be cotton swabs. Whatever you're teaching is what we would examine. You may even, for the lips, go back to the old Gerson textbook where they folded the tissue into fours and it went from corner to center and corner to center, corner to center, and corner to center. We're going to examine what you're teaching, okay? Afterwards, we do want that candidate to apply toner or astringent or tonique. We don't say that you have to use gauze or cotton round for that. We do say that if you spray the face, or you teach spraying the face with that astringent or toner, they have to protect the eyes in some way. They could just merely put the hand up and spray around the hand. They could put cotton rounds on the eyes to protect them. But we didn't say you have to spray. We're saying you have to protect the eyes if you're going to spray. Okay? Here again, we would be looking to see that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash would be disposed of. Our next section is exfoliating the face with product using an implement or materials and including towel steaming. It's a 10-minute procedure. Our candidates are told, you will perform exfoliating the face. You will apply exfoliating product to the entire face and manipulate using an implement or material and include towel steaming. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. Instructions are repeated. Candidates then told, you may begin. Your examiner would be looking to see that exfoliating the face products are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies would be visibly clean, and they apply the exfoliant product over the entire face and manipulate with an implement or material excluding the eyes and the mouth. Here again, we know there are exfoliants for the eyelids, and we know there are exfoliants for the lips. This is an entry-level exam, and we're just saying if you get it on, simply get it off. We are also saying here that you need to, once that is applied, that exfoliant, you need to manipulate it with something other than the fingertips. Could be a cotton round, it could be a loofah, it could be, we will even allow a battery-operated brushing machine, a handheld, not one that you have to plug into the wall, but a lot of schools are including those in their student kit today, and so we allow that in our exam to be used for exfoliating. Afterwards, we do want them to apply a steam towel and remove it. Here again, all of our textbook, whether it's Barbering Cosmetology, Aesthetics, always say squeeze out the excess. Test it either on the wrist or the forearm. Milady says test it on the wrist. Pivot Point says to test it on the forearm. So either of those areas are fine. Once they've tested that, we want them to apply that over the face and then remove the residual product. Now, some of you might, for instance, teach, well, you've got that towel on there. When you finish, just use that towel to remove that product. And you might say, well, you know, go ahead and remove that towel, put it into soiled linens, and then take your 4x4 gauze and then cleanse that. Either way is fine. You do have to towel steam, but you may utilize that steam towel to remove the product as well. Okay? After removing that product, we are looking to see, of course, that that they have disposed of items to be disinfected, any soiled linens or trash. Yes, ma'am.
Are viewers looking for them to actually wet the towel, or should they wet the towel prior?
They should wet the towel. It should come in a Ziploc bag, or sometimes I've seen them come in thermoses. Sometimes they bring them in a six-pack cooler, but they should already be wet prior to coming. Okay? Another question? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
The breakdown you're giving the 10 minutes and from the 10 minutes on exfoliating. Is this for the cosmetology exam round?
Yes, ma'am. No, it will be.
So it's going to be broken down. I have 10 minutes and
No, no, no. It won't be broken down in, her question is about the cosmetology exam. For the cosmetology, you will go directly into cleansing the face, and then you will go into the exfoliating process, but not a break in between nor verbal instructions. Yes?
Can I use makeup sponges to apply my exfoliant?
We don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay. Another question that somebody might would have. Our next section is massaging the face with product. It's 10 minutes. Our candidates are told, you will perform massaging the face. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. The instructions are repeated. The candidates then told that they may begin. Your examiner will be looking to see that the massaging the face products and supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean, and that they distribute that massage product over the face. We want them to demonstrate the effleurage, the petrissage tapotement, and the friction massage manipulations in no particular order. I would encourage you as an instructor to encourage your students to do more than one effleurage movement. Your examiners are trying to see more than one person. They want to make sure everybody gets the credit that they deserve. So if they could do 3 or 4 manipulations or strokes there, it would sure help your examiner. Okay? Basically, we're asking 4 of the 5 basic massage manipulations for this exercise. Afterwards, we want them to remove that massage product the way that you've taught them to, and then to step back. Yes?
After massage, you don't apply astringent or moisturizer?
If that's what you're teaching, we wouldn't have a problem at all. It's not part of, I know, I like astringent and toners and toniques, and I use them a lot. But that was not part of the exercise, but if that's what you're teaching them to do, they certainly can. Here again, they need to protect the eyes if they're going to apply that by spray. Okay? This is pretty hard to see for you guys, isn't it? Okay, our candidates are then told, you will break down your work area and properly dispose of the supplies used in the previous sections of the examination. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 5 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 2 minutes remaining. Do not set up or perform any services until the verbal instructions have been given and you are instructed to begin. Step back to indicate you have finished. So basically here, I need to get rid of all the supplies on my table. So I would push my universal supplies, and universal supplies vary between the barber, the cosmetologist, the nail tech, and the esthetician. But I would push those universal supplies to the side, and I would dispose of all those things. I don't need that cleanser any longer. I don't need that exfoliant. Put those products into items to be disinfected because they would need to be disinfected because they're contaminated. The bottles are contaminated now. I would get rid of, if I had placed the towel down, I would put that in the soiled linens. I would take the head drape away from, off of my model, and I would put it in the appropriate place for it. The décolleté towel or décolletage towel I would place in the soiled linens as well. And then once I've removed everything that I no longer need, then I'm just going to wait. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, when you set up universal supply, they have a real in the NICC real facial cleanser, that true? Or you just make a jar and you put a label in because they say real?
It doesn't have to be new.
Real, it's a real one. Real.
Oh, and it needs to be a real product
Yeah.
in there. But it's a mannequin. I mean, you could put cholesterol in there if you wanted to. Or you could put, if you were spraying, you could have water in there.
Okay. And when universal supply with the moisturizer and astringent, everything included there? Or just...
Universal supplies to me for the esthetician would include a roll of paper towels, my antiseptic, certainly my disinfectant, my hand sanitizer, my first aid kit. I'm going to have that roll of paper towels, and I'm going to probably have a box of tissues there as well. And I might have a few more things that I would consider a universal, but maybe you didn't. And that's okay, because like I said, everybody is a little different. But there are some things like our disinfectant, our hand sanitizer, our roll of paper towels. Those are pretty universal throughout our industry.
Include spatula.
And certainly you're going to need some spatulas as well. Okay? So I pushed all my universal supplies to the side. I've gotten rid of everything that I no longer need, and I'm just waiting. Once everybody has stepped back, then my proctor is going to say, you will prepare your work area for a new client. You will set up the universal supplies you will use for the remainder of the examination. You will also set up for the following sections of the examination: hair removal of the eyebrow, tweezing and simulated soft wax, facial mask, facial makeup. You will also prepare your client for services. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 15 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 8 minutes remaining. Do not demonstrate any procedures until the verbal instructions have been given and you are instructed to begin. Step back to indicate you have finished. Those instructions, of course, are repeated. So for me, I've pushed my universal supplies. I'm going to disinfect this area of my table that doesn't have my supplies on it. And then I'm going to begin moving those universal supplies over into that newly disinfected area by disinfecting them. And once I've placed all of those universal supplies back over in that newly disinfected area, then I'm going to disinfect that part of the table. If I'd used a wipe, that would go into the trash. If I'd used a spray disinfectant and used a towel, a cloth towel, it would go into soiled linens. I've got to re-sanitize my hands and go in there and pull out the supplies that were just listed for me. And that includes the wax and the simulated the hair removal supplies, the facial mask, and the facial makeup. Certainly I'm going to sanitize my hands prior to going into that kit to remove those. Yes, ma'am? I'm sorry, ask me that again.
I am a Cosmo, and I'm done with the facial.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to get it ready to do the nail. What do I do with my mannequin head?
You can just put it on the floor. We're not looking to see exactly where you're putting it. Just don't put it back into a kit. That's the only thing we say. You can actually sit it on the floor or on the corner or push it to the side of your work area. Either of those.
Could it stay on the table?
Sure, we don't have a problem with that. There's nowhere to mark off for a mannequin head remaining on the table or the workstation. Yes, ma'am?
Do they still have 2 workstations, or is it just one?
Do you have 2 workstations or one?
They have the counter and the mannequin.
Okay, they have a separate manicure table.
Okay.
Can we put the mannequin table close to the garbage?
Do you put it close to the,
The garbage?
To
So
the-
when we are trying stuff, we can have it set up next to the garbage? No.
They can. Sometimes the examiner will ask them to move it so they can see it a little better.
Yeah.
yes, ma'am?
Okay, so my question is saying cosmetologist, when they're setting up their universal, I mean, they're cleaning their station for the facial and their universal supplies, because they've just used them on their station, do they need to move those onto the manicure table? Or can they leave them on their station that they're in?
They're fine where they
just
are.
move the things
They're
that-
fine where they are. And
As
we're,
long as you're disinfecting correctly, right?
and you could have disinfected that earlier, because from what I remember, those manicure tables slide up underneath. They don't? Okay, okay. So that they could disinfect it when you're setting your second setup. Okay. Or even prior to starting your manicure itself.
You need to sanitize again, so you've done all of your chemicals at this point, and then they tell you that you have the time to set up for your facial. So you would re-sanitize, even though you maybe re-sanitize.
No, you won't need to re-disinfect that area at all. That's the same.
Okay, no markdown for that.
No, yeah, no, we've seen them disinfect twice. We're not, trying to carry this on for a day and a half of nothing but disinfecting a table. We've already made an assessment on what they've done, so we don't need to see them do it a third or fourth time. Yes, ma'am?
And since they have 2 workstations, because the second client has so many products in it, is it possible for them to put the domains on the other station while they're working on their?
Sure, sure. Okay. More questions? I mean, that's what we're here for, is to help you guys get through this and make sure it runs smoothly for you as well.
Oh, I have one thing. While you're using both areas as your setup,
Yes, ma'am?
you don't have to transition things that are on your station onto the manicure table. You can just work from that station.
Yes, ma'am. We're considering both of those as your work area. Okay? Your examiner will be looking to see, of course, that they do disinfect all work areas completely with product that's labeled in English, that they sanitize their hands with product that's labeled in English, and that the universal supplies are also labeled in English. They need to apply that new protective covering to the model's hair and the body, just like we talked about initially. And then certainly we're looking to see that items to be disinfected, any soiled linens and trash, would be disposed of in the proper container. Our next section is hair removal of the eyebrow by tweezing and using simulated soft wax. It's an untimed section. You will perform hair removal of the eyebrow by tweezing and using simulated soft wax. You will demonstrate hair removal from one eyebrow by tweezing. You will demonstrate hair removal from the other eyebrow using simulated soft wax. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will be instructed individually by the examiner to demonstrate the tweezing and soft wax procedures. This is an untimed section. Do not begin the tweezing and soft wax procedures until instructed individually by the examiner to do so. Our instructions are repeated, and then what's going to happen is the examiner is going to come over to your candidate, let's say number 1 here, and I'm going to say, please demonstrate the removal of hair by tweezing. And you're going to go through that process, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And I'm telling you so you can pass this on to your students. With this, once that candidate is finished with the tweezing procedure, then they're going to go and stay with that same candidate. Please demonstrate the removal of hair by using simulated soft wax. Once that's processed, they're going to say, please step back and do nothing until the next verbal instructions are given. They're going to the candidate number 2, and they're going to go through the same process until everybody has been examined. So let's talk about our expectations for the simulated soft waxing procedure as well as the tweezing of the brow. Our examiner, of course, is looking to see that the supplies are labeled in English and that any implements and supplies are visibly clean. We're looking to see that that candidate wears gloves. If you don't mind, I'm just going to walk you through it, and then I'll talk and read it to make sure I didn't miss anything. But basically, we're looking for that candidate to wear gloves. We want them to take some kind of antiseptic or apply antiseptic to one eyebrow and then certainly dispose of that into the trash. We want them to take their tweezers. We want them to begin the tweezing process in an outward motion. Here again, we know that that mannequin doesn't have hair there or eyebrows, but if they could just mop 3 or 4 in the direction of the hair growth, that would be great. Then they're through with that. They need to dispose of that tweezers in the proper receptacle, of course, which would be items to be disinfected. We then want them to take an antiseptic and to cleanse that area and dispose of that. Then that examiner, like I said, is going to remain with that candidate, and they're going to say, please demonstrate the removal of hair using simulated soft wax. Our expectations of that, here again, are that they're going to take an antiseptic wipe and wipe that area and dispose of that wipe in the proper receptacle. They don't have to change gloves. They can keep those same gloves on, just like in our other exams that we were talking about earlier. We want them to take a small amount of simulated soft wax on an applicator and touch the wrist, not the glove. We want them to actually touch the wrist. That spatula, once they're through with that, if it were a wooden spatula, it needs to go into the trash. If it were a plastic spatula, it could go into items to be disinfected, couldn't it? We want them to take that second spatula beginning at the beginning of the brow here. We want them to go the entire length of the brow and then dispose of that spatula. We then want them to take a piece of Pellon, a piece of plastic, a piece of muslin, whatever you folks are teaching, utilizing in your schools, and apply that over that newly applied simulated wax. For simulated wax, a lot of times we see honey, sometimes we see petroleum jelly, sometimes we see molasses, anything that you want to send that is just don't send the wax pot. Or for this particular exercise, and then apply that over that newly applied wax, hold the skin taut, and pull in the opposite direction. That then needs to go into the trash. We want them then to take either an antiseptic or a post-epilation and apply that. Now, you probably teach to use antiseptic and then post-epilation. You might teach to use post-epilation and then antiseptic. They do need to use both, but no particular order because of the way that it's being taught. So apply both the post-epilation product as well as the antiseptic. Okay? Questions about the waxing procedure or the hair removal procedure? Yes, ma'am.
So the wax pot, we can directly go into it, or do we need a separate cup to put wax in?
No, it's going to be your wax pot, and just take the top off and get a small amount. So we're looking to see that the candidate wore gloves. The examiner is looking to see that they apply to antiseptic and that they hold the skin taut and they tweeze the hair in the direction of the hair growth, and then afterwards apply that antiseptic. For the hair removal of the eyebrow with the simulated soft wax, they apply the antiseptic. They use some type of absorbent material to dry that. It could be a paper towel, it could be a cloth towel. Sometimes we even see them bring in a powder or talc, cornstarch, that sort of thing, whatever that you're teaching. You know that you're about to apply wax and to a wet area, so it needs to be dried prior to. And then test the temperature on the wrist, apply that wax product the entire length of the brow. Now, we didn't say above the brow or below the brow, but we want the entire length of the brow. Don't just do the tip end of it there and expect to get credit for that. And then we want them to smooth that wax strip out, hold the skin taut, and remove that wax strip in the opposite direction, like I said earlier. Apply the antiseptic, and then apply the post-epilation product to that treated area. Okay? Our next section is the facial mask and the conclusion of the facial service. Our candidates are told, you will apply the facial mask and conclude the facial service. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. The instructions would be repeated. The candidates then told that they may begin. Your examiner will be looking to see that the facial mask supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean, that they apply the mask to cover the face, excluding the eyes and the lips. Here again, we know that there are masks for the eyelids, and we know that there are masks for the lips. It's an entry level, just merely get it off of there. I would ask you as an instructor here again to remember that they're watching more than one person, and a clay mask works very well on those mannequins. A gel mask is pretty difficult to see. They've got to come over and maybe invade their space by looking so close. So if you'll encourage them to use some type of mask that's visible, it will surely help your examiners as well. We also are, after we apply that mask, we're not going to wait for 10 or 15 minutes. We're just going to merely apply that mask and then remove it the way that you've taught them to. Afterwards, we want them to apply toner or astringent, here again, avoiding the eyelids or the eye area. And then we're finished with our facial, so we always are told to apply moisturizer. Plus, we also know that we're about to do facial makeup, and that moisturizer should be applied prior to. We're always looking to see that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash are disposed of throughout the section. Typical mask. Our next section is the facial makeup. It's a 20-minute procedure. Our candidates are told you will apply facial makeup. You are expected to brace when working around the eye and the mouth area. Let me talk about that for just a second. Those of you who are using either Milady or Pivot Point for facial makeup or aesthetics work know that the safety of makeup was left out. NIC is a large organization, and because all 50 states plus our territories own NIC and belong to NIC. So when we met with these folks, and we have a lot of committees, including a textbook committee. The textbook committee noted that. They have notified our publishers about it. I was in contact probably a month or so ago with one of the textbook companies who's about to bring out a new aesthetics textbook. And they have been told, that it needs to be included in there, and they are working to bring that back around as far as bracing. Now, a single brace is when I have one hand here to work. Anytime that I work around the eye or the mouth area, I have to brace. It's the only safe. We're really not concerned that that mannequin is a spring or a winter or a fall, or it's got orange lipstick and purple eyeshadow and green cheek color. Those are things that we're not interested in. We're looking at the safety and the application of, not how beautiful she is when they're finished. So we do expect them to brace anytime they're working around. The subject matter experts that developed this exam felt that it was unfair to ask a candidate to brace without telling them that they have to brace, and so that's why it's in the verbal instructions. That's why it's in the candidate information bulletin. That's why I'm telling you, today that they have to brace with either a single brace or a double brace. We have one state that actually requires a double brace anytime they're working. So a double brace is when I have 2 points of contact here. So there's somebody comes by. May I touch you? This is not a brace to work like that. I need physical contact with the face to brace, okay? Anytime around the mouth or the lips, okay? Pardon me. It's a 20-minute procedure. They're told that they will be informed when they have 10 minutes and to step back to indicate they have finished. Here again, a single brace up top, a double brace on the bottom. Your examiner will be looking to see that the facial makeup supplies are labeled in English, that the implements and supplies are visibly clean, and they apply protective covering to the shoulders. Now, here again, our mannequin has, they've just had a waxing, and we've already draped them for their second setup. They've just had their waxing, and they've had a mask. So they're just sitting there at this point, still draped over. There is a task here to check, to protect the shoulders, because that's what our textbook said for us to do, and we're supposed to drape the hair. So at this point, they can, if they have let's say a headband, for instance, is the way that you teach. Matt, just ask them to take that headband off and reapply it. The same thing with the protective covering. They've had a towel there or a sheet or something there to cover that décolleté or décolletage area. And so just merely, our textbook says we're going to be using shadows, and we're going to be using blushes and all translucent powders, and all of these are going to fall down on the shoulder of our client. We need to protect our client. So merely take that towel and readjust it so that it sits back up and that they're able to protect your client or their client. So they're going to secure the hair away from the face. They're also going to apply the protective covering. Okay? Want them to apply foundation to cover the face. Now, I need to tell you that these makeup supplies have to be removed from their original container, and they have to be placed on the palette. Here again, you heard all morning this morning talking about wooden handle and natural bristle brushes. If they have a wooden handle or they have a natural bristle brush, when they finish with that makeup brush, it has to go into the trash. They can clean it out when they get home if they want, but it's a real life experience there, and we want it to be real as a way of examining as well. So just tell them to dispose of that in the proper receptacle, and the proper receptacle for a wooden handle or a natural bristle is the trash. Here again, I would encourage you, disposables are cheap. They're very cheap, so I would encourage them to use disposables as well. Certainly when you're working around with the eye, you have to, that mascara one has to be a disposable. That lip brush has to be disposable because of the possibility of transferring herpes simplex or pink eye. Okay, so they're going to apply foundation, and here again, it's so difficult. There is no special way. Here again, you might teach to apply foundation and then to cover, put on your translucent powder, and you might teach to wait and put that translucent powder on at the end to set all of the makeup. There are many ways of doing it. Some makeup artists begin with the eyes, others begin with the cheeks. Some like to start at the lips. But once that foundation is going, it's pretty tough for these guys to watch, and they're doing their best. And one of the things that we'll talk about is positioning themselves so that they can see. as far as the examination process. So we want them to apply the powder, apply blush, and groom the eyebrows in some way. We didn't say you have to use a pencil. We didn't say you have to brush it. We didn't say you have to comb it. We want you to groom the eyebrows in some way, and the choice is theirs. Okay? But here again, eyebrows are part of the eye area, and they do need to brace while utilizing that brush or that comb. After they groom the eyebrows, they might do the eyeshadow and apply eyeliner. Let me talk about the pencils. We don't need to see them sharpen a pencil. We know that our textbook tells us we need the only way to sanitize a pencil is to sharpen it before and after every client. Everything in that kit is clean and ready for use, so we don't need to see them. So don't tell them not to do that. Okay, we want to see them apply mascara and apply a lip liner and a lip color. And all the while, we're looking to see that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash are disposed of. Anybody have questions on the makeup section at all? Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's what I say. There's no special order for. Once that foundation is down, some, like I said, go to the eyes, and others start with the lips. No particular order. Teach them the way that you want them to do it.
Okay. And then more than one eyeshadow, right? They need to see
More than what?
more than one eyeshadow?
No.
Just one?
Yeah, one's fine.
Okay.
We didn't ask for 1 or 2 or 3 eyeshadows or anything like that. We also have a blood exposure for our estheticians, a little bit different, so let's talk about it. You will demonstrate the blood exposure procedure. You'll imagine the following scenario. During a service, your client has sustained a minor cut to the forehead. The injury is such that you can continue with the service. You've not come in contact with the blood and your work area has not been contaminated. You are expected to demonstrate the proper procedure for a blood exposure. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. Those instructions, of course, are repeated. The candidate's then told that they may begin. So let me walk you through that because it's just a little bit different. Okay, I need to sanitize my hands. I need to go into that first aid kit, and I need to retrieve a Ziploc bag. I need to retrieve a pair of gloves. I need to retrieve an antiseptic wipe or an alcohol wipe or a mere piece of cotton or cotton ball or cotton round, and then also a bandage of some sort. Okay, I need to close that. I need to don those gloves. Once I have those gloves on, I'm going to take that Ziploc bag and set it up on my workstation so that it sits open. Okay, I'm going to open that antiseptic wipe or that alcohol wipe and throw that wrapper into the Ziploc bag. If I didn't have one of those, I said you might pull out a cotton round or a cotton ball. I could take my hand sanitizer and do the same thing because it's predominantly alcohol. I'm going to wipe the forehead of that mannequin, and I'm going to drop that into the Ziploc bag. I'm going to open up the bandage, and I'm going to drop that wrapper for that bandage inside there. I'm going to open that bandage, and I'm going to apply that on the forehead of that mannequin, and then I'm going to throw the wings of that bandage into the Ziploc bag. I'm going to take off my gloves, drop those into the Ziploc bag, zip it up, and merely drop it into the trash. Okay? Okay. So your examiner is looking to see that the supplies are labeled in English, that they remove the materials from the first aid kit, and of course that's by sanitizing the hands first. Supplies are visibly clean. The candidate wears gloves. They clean the injured areas with antiseptic, cover with a dressing that is absorbent and secured, and dispose of all contaminated supplies. Okay. Who has questions on aesthetics at all? Anybody?
Is the bracing in any book that you know of?
It's coming out. It's not in there now.
But any old books? I need to read up on that because I don't really understand it.
I could not tell you. Also, in your exam, you also do the microdermabrasion, and you also do the lash extension, the lash band extension. So let me go over that. That's an additional service. It's not in our core, but you guys have opted to do it. We do it in my state as well. And so let me find that. So there are whenever we have an additional service like that, or an optional service, as some people call it, we always allow 2 minutes to set up. So at this point, what would happen would the candidates would be told that they have 2 minutes to remove the supplies for the particle microdermabrasion, and then once that is done and everybody's stepped back, then they'll be given this information. You will perform particle microdermabrasion. You will demonstrate vertical and horizontal strokes on the forehead. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. Instructions are repeated. The candidate is then told that they may begin. Let me plug this thing up before it dies on. Okay. Let's talk about it. We're not expecting your candidates to bring a microdermabrasion wand. We are expecting them to bring a simulated handpiece. A lot of times, very honestly, we see magic markers unopened that have a 4-foot cord attached to it, a piece of yarn or a piece of small rope or something like that. That's fine with us. We are asking them to do both the horizontal and the vertical. I know that Milady has a new diagonal way of doing it. We're not asking for that, only the basic entry-level exam. So your examiner is going to be looking to see that the microdermabrasion supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean. We want them to degrease the skin or with a degreaser or prep solution. That could be marked as a prep solution or degreaser. It could actually be water inside of a bottle, or it could be alcohol if that's what you're teaching them to degrease with. We just want them to make sure that they're dehydrating that skin. We want them, of course, afterwards to dry that excess moisture from that product. And they need to apply eye protection to their model or their mannequin. Okay, this could be in the form of cotton rounds. A lot of estheticians will dampen those with an astringent and place them on there. Sometimes we even see that they'll bring a pair of sunbed goggles and to help hold those in place. You might remember the old butterfly iPad that you might want to utilize for that. They just need to protect the eyes in some way. That candidate also needs to wear gloves, and they need to hold the skin taut, meaning without slack. And then we want them to demonstrate the vertical strokes with that simulated handpiece across the entire forehead, and the cord must be attached to the handpiece. I said it should be a 4-foot cord, and it should be. We're looking to see what they're doing with that cord, just like they are in the examination for the cosmetologist and the barber in thermal curling. It doesn't need to be wrapped around their arm. It doesn't need to be thrown over their shoulder. It needs to hang free. And then it needs to be disinfected, of course, after every client, or wiped down after every client. So tell your student not to throw it around their shoulder or over their shoulder, around their neck, or around their arm. We're looking to see that it dangles and is hands-free. Afterwards, we want them to demonstrate the horizontal strokes across the entire forehead, and then remove any particles. And here again, we know that's a simulated measure, but teach them the way that you would in your class, that after doing a particle microdermabrasion, there's always going to be some crystals left behind, or baking soda, or whatever your machine uses. There's always going to be some, so if you teach them to get rid of it with a fan brush, that's fine. If you teach them to remove those products with a 4x4 gauze, or whatever you're teaching, they just need to simulate the process of removing those products. Now, they too need to be wearing as well a mask that covers their mouth. And we protected the client there by covering their eyes. We need to be wearing some type of eye protection ourselves. If they wear glasses, they can take those off and merely reapply them. If not, they need to apply a eye protection because those particles could get into their eyes as well. Okay? We are looking, of course, to see that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash are disposed of properly. Any questions on microdermabrasion? Okay. Our candidates are told you have 2 minutes to remove the supplies from your kit for the eyelash enhancement section of this examination. Do not begin any procedures until the verbal instructions have been given and you are instructed to begin. Step back to indicate you have finished. Then they're told you will apply eyelash enhancement. You will be expected to brace when working around the eyes. You will add a complete eyelash band to the full length of the lash line of both eyes. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. But we're looking to see, or your examiner will be looking to see that those supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean, that they brush the lashes in order to remove the any foreign matter. This is the lashes that are on the mannequin, not the lashes that they're about to apply. Our textbook says, that we should, if we were applying these to a live model, that we would comb through or brush through the lashes to make sure that there was nothing or no residue there. So we want them to measure, and then we want them to apply adhesive to that band and apply that band starting from the inner corner of the eye out so that it follows the natural lash line. Anybody have questions on our lash band application? Anybody have questions on aesthetics at all? Then I'm going into our nails. Our nail technicians are in place and they're excited about getting going. They're told, you will prepare your work area for your client. You will set up the universal supplies you will use throughout the examination. You will also set up the supplies for the manicure and polish application. You will prepare your client for the services. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Do not demonstrate any procedures until the verbal instructions are given, and you are instructed to begin. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Your examiner will be looking to see that they do disinfect all work areas completely with product, that they sanitize their hands with product, and remove the universal supplies that are labeled in English. We're also looking to see that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash are disposed of properly there. Here again, a typical setup that we see. You don't have to have the cloth towel there, don't have to have the paper towel there, but that's the way a lot of nail techs operate. As a matter of fact, a lot of times we even see that they make a cushion that their hand could even rest on, and that's fine. We want to examine here again what you're teaching. It's going beyond, but it's not a part of our exam. Then they're told you will now perform manicure and polish application. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 20 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 10 minutes remaining. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Our instructions, of course, are repeated. The candidate's then told that they may begin. Okay, this is the way that we're told to hold the fingers for working. Our textbook, we used to say that you had to have a finger at each side wall there in order to pull that skin down so that when you were filing that you wouldn't break the skin or tear the skin. Well, lo and behold, our textbooks changed and we try to be legally defensible, so we require at least one finger being left at the side wall because that's what our textbooks say. So at least one finger, anytime they're filing and shaping the nails or using an abrasive there, they should have at least one finger at the sidewall, preferably two. We're looking to see that the manicure supplies are labeled in English, that implements and supplies are visibly clean. They sanitize the hand to be manicured with a product that's labeled in English, and then they're going let me talk about that for just a second. I know you guys are tired, but this is such a real exam. I really love this exam. I've seen it come from what it used to be to where it is today, and it's so salon ready. If you go into a salon to have a manicure, you expect them to have disinfected that area. You expect to have new files and new emery boards. We will allow an orange wood stick in this exam if that's the way that you're teaching, but it didn't say you have to use an orange wood stick. You can use the pusher, the plastic one, that sort of thing. But when you sit down at that table, you expect that candidate to sanitize your hands. That nail technician to sanitize your hands, don't you? But you expect them to sanitize their hands before they sanitize yours. And we do too. So a word to the wise. Okay? Now, we want them to shape the nails and then immerse all 5 fingernails in a bowl of water. Once they have filed and shaped, and here again, it comes from the textbook. There's no seesawing back and forth with these files and that sort of thing. Those are the kinds of things that we're always looking for. It's like your textbook says from corner to center and corner to center. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to step back a little bit. It's necessary to separate the abrasives from the disposables from disinfectables on the table?
No.
To set up?
No.
All can be in one side, right?
Yes, ma'am. Her question, we don't judge the setup. Some people like it if they're right-handed, like everything on the right-hand side. Some people like it on both sides. It's really up to you. Those are not things that we would be judging or examining on. That's left up to you as an instructor to teach them the most efficient way of performing that service, and we're not going to intervene with that.
And the caddy on top, where you put all the supplies on the side, is necessary to have it?
Necessary to have what?
It's like a caddy where you put all the
No,
stuff in?
no. Okay. As a matter of fact, I would discourage a caddy at all here again, because if we're going to break down in just a minute after this manicure, because we're going to get a new client. So anything that's in that caddy has to be disinfected. If you're going to reuse that caddy, that same caddy for the next client, you've got to disinfect that caddy. So I wouldn't bother to go through that because I think it's going to waste a lot of your time in breaking down and setting up. So I wouldn't use the caddy. Another question, somebody? Okay. So we want them to immerse all 5 fingernails in a bowl of water, and that's completely immersion as far as the nails are concerned. And then we want them to apply cuticle remover and push the cuticle back the way that you've taught them to. They do need to clean under the free edge, and of course your textbook tells you that that implement needs to be covered with either cotton or with cotton or something to keep from damaging that hyponychium there. And then we want them to wipe the nails to remove any product. We want them to buff the nails and apply cuticle oil.
Okay, I have a question. When that's cleaned under the free edge, that is not necessary to go each time with the new Q-Fix, I say?
And with a new applicator to clean under there? No, we don't require that at all.
Okay.
We do. Okay, so let's say, for instance, that you push the cuticle back and you had an orange wood stick that you maybe put cotton, or you had the plastic pusher and you push that back. You could use that same to clean under the nails if you wanted, but that orange wood stick or that applicator has to be covered if you're going to go up underneath the nail. Okay? But it could be the same one, because you can't contaminate me with my own cooties. Okay? Afterwards, we want them to apply massage product, and we want them to go through the massage or the process of massaging the hand, the top, and the fingers with at least 2 different types of massage movements. Afterwards, we want them to remove that product off of the nails with an appropriate solution, and then we want them to apply base coat, red polish, and a top coat. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Sean mentioned earlier that there are some dual-purpose products today, start to finish, beginning to end, whatever they're named. They're both a base and a top. We don't have a problem with that. A candidate could actually bring us a clear bottle of polish or a bottle of polish that says base/top, and we would assume that that's what's in there. We do get sticky, though, I will tell you, for red polish. We're expecting red. And we didn't say a shade of red, and we didn't say a tint of red. We're expecting red, fire engine red. So don't be tell your students not to be bringing burgundy in and not to be bringing in pink. We ask for red, and there's a place for us to mark off if they didn't follow the directions for that. You guys know that teach nails that you use red polish because it shows up all the problems that you've created there. We want to see those. We want to see if those nails are rough and beat up and that sort of thing. Okay? So afterwards, we didn't say the number of coats. We're not counting the number of strokes. That's all technique, and we're not looking for technique. We're looking to see that they've covered the nail plate with red polish, and I shouldn't, of course, see the nail plate through that. If it takes 2 coats or 20 coats, it should be covered completely with red polish. Okay. Now, they've turned their hand toward the examiner. Our proctor would say, all candidates have indicated they have completed this section of the examination. Please do nothing until the next verbal instructions are given. So at that point, your examiner is going to come over, and with gloved hands, they're going to pick up that hand, and they're going to look at it. And they're looking to see, is one of those nails, is it shaped in a square, or is it oval on the other side? Are they all unique and like they should be? They're looking to see if polish is on the cuticle or that surrounding skin. They're looking to see if when they were buffing the nails, did they beat up the cuticle area back there? Those are the kinds of things that they're going to look. They're going to turn that hand back toward that candidate. Please do nothing until the next verbal instructions are given. They're going to move on to the next client and the next one and the next one until everybody has been examined. Okay? So they're looking to see that the polish is smooth and it's even, that there are no bubbles in it, that the nail plate is entirely covered with red polish, and the surrounding skin as well as the cuticle are free of polish and free of injury. Then the next verbal instructions that they will hear would be all examiners have indicated they are ready to proceed with the examination. You will remove the polish from all nails and properly dispose of the supplies used in the previous section of the examination. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 5 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 2 minutes remaining. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Your examiner will be looking to see, of course, that items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash are disposed of properly. We're looking there, folks, just to see what they're doing. Did they take that cotton round and take polish remover and then they lay it on the table? Or did it go into the trash where it should go? Did they use an orange wood stick to clean around that cuticle area, maybe by putting a little bit of cotton on there with some polish remover? And what did they do with that? So those are the kinds of things. No, we're not looking to see how great, how well they took off that red polish. We're looking to see what they're doing with the applicators and the things that they're utilizing during that process. Later on, we'll be looking to see that the red polish is no longer there. But here again, we realize it's a plastic hand that just had red polish on it, and usually there's going to be some stain left behind there. And it takes a little while to get that off. We're not looking for that, how well they're doing that. We're looking to see what they're utilizing and how they're disposing of those during that process. The next verbal instructions that our candidate would hear would be, you would prepare your work area for a new client. You will set up your work area with the universal supplies you will use for the remainder of the examination. You will also set up for the following sections of the examination: nail tip application and blending, sculptured nail. You will prepare your client for the services. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 10 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Do not demonstrate any procedures until the verbal instructions are given and you are instructed to begin. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Those instructions would be repeated. The candidate is then told, you may begin. Here again, a typical setup. Your examiner is looking to see that they do disinfect all work areas completely with product that's labeled in English, that they sanitize the hands with product that's labeled in English, and that the universal supplies are labeled in English. And items to be disinfected, soiled linens, and trash should be disposed of during that entire section. One thing, let me remind you, in all of our exams, a lot of times candidates want to bring those things in plastic bags, and they would take those implements and those supplies and lay them out on the table. And then they also don't know what to do with the plastic bag. Throw it away. Just simply get rid of it. Don't leave it on the table. If it's a plastic bag that's left open, that has not been closed up, or it's going to be considered as an open container sitting there. So throw it in the trash. Just simple as that. Bring your products out, put them down, get rid of the bag. Okay? All right, next section is the nail tip application and blending. You will perform nail tip application and blending. You will apply a nail tip to the whatever finger that the proctor determines at that moment. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You'll have 20 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 10 minutes remaining. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Instructions are repeated. The candidate is then told that they may begin. Your examiner will be looking to see that the nail tip application and blending supplies are labeled in English, that any implements and supplies are visibly clean, that they sanitize the hand to apply that tip, but they also need to sanitize their hands as well, like we talked about. And then we want them to remove any residual nail polish from the nail plate with an appropriate solution. There we don't want to see the red underneath that tip. They need to make sure that that is good and all the red is off of there. Wanted them to remove the shine from the nail plate, and then, of course, remove the dust from the nail plate the way that you taught them to. Afterwards, we want them to apply a nail dehydrator product to the nail plate. You may use a professional product if that's what you're teaching. Some people teach them to use alcohol because it's dehydrating as well. Just some type of dehydrating product in order to dehydrate that nail plate. Then we want them to select a full well tip and attach it to the finger that was assigned. And here again, tell them to be listening because they're going to read those instructions twice, but it has to be on the finger that was assigned. I actually observed an exam several times where people do the wrong finger, or they do one that it's easier for them to do. So make sure it is the finger that's been assigned. And then we want them to trim and shape that nail tip and then blend that tip. Once they're finished with that, they're going to turn that toward our examiners. And then our proctor is going to say, all candidates have indicated that they have completed this section of the examination. Please do nothing until the next verbal instructions are given. Yes, ma'am.
If they bring alcohol as a dehydrator, the alcohol bottle has to be in the original label, original container, or can be poured into another little bottle with just alcohol on it?
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, her question was if they're using alcohol, can they transfer that into a small, because they're not using it as a sanitizer, they're using it as a dehydrator. So, yes.
Thank you. So you wanted to say dehydrator instead of alcohol, or?
It's fine to be dehydrator. Here again, we're not going to sniff it and make sure it's alcohol. It can say dehydrator or degreaser. Either. They are. Okay. Okay, dehydrator. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Okay, then what's going to happen is that examiner is going to come over and they're going to pick up that hand and they're going to look at that. They're going to look at that. Is it square on one side? Is it oval on the other? Did that tip really fit? Is it too short or too narrow or too wide? They're going to run their finger across the top of that tip. Is it blended well? Do they feel that ridge that wasn't? They're going to look, are there bubbles there that they got? Are there divots did they disintegrate half of the tip by over-filing? They're going to make a good assessment of that nail like you would were you to go into a salon. And so then they're going to turn that hand back and say, please do nothing until the next verbal instructions are given. Then they're going to the next person and the next and next until everybody has been assessed. Yes, ma'am.
So in the process of blending the tip, the actual candidate can touch the finger and see if it's already there?
Sure, sure. Can they touch the nail plate?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Another question somebody might have?
When you do the setup, do you have to have all the other products like the polish out?
No, because you've gotten rid of those earlier.
Polymer.
That was all gone. But you're going to, in the second setup, you're told to pull out the supplies you're going to use for the nail tip application and the sculptured nail.
Oh, well, I should have clarified, for Cosmos,
Okay.
they'll just only have sculptured nail product.
You're going to pull out just the sculptured nail product.
Okay.
So they're looking to see here again that tip fit, its application, the cuticle and the surrounding skin, is it had been destroyed because of filing and that sort of thing. We want to make sure that it's free of adhesive. They're going to look up underneath there and make sure that there's no adhesive on that hyponychium. They're just going to make a good assessment of that. Anybody have questions on the nail tip application at all? Then our next section is the sculptured nail. Our candidates are told, you will sculpt a nail on the whatever finger the proctor determines at that time. You must use a manufactured sealed low odor, less odor monomer. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You will have 20 minutes to complete this section. You will be informed when you have 10 minutes remaining. Turn the hand toward the examiner to indicate you have finished. Instructions are repeated. The candidate's then told that they may begin. Here again, we do expect that to have a manufacturer's label. We'll be checking to make sure that it is sealed by the manufacturer. These products have to be removed, folks, from their original container and placed into a dampened dish. Now, sculptured material today is in every color of the rainbow. It's no longer the white or the pink and the white or the clear. I mean, it's just about in every color imaginable out there. We're not looking for any particular method. We're not looking for the 3-ball method or the 4-ball method. We're looking to see that they know how to sculpt a nail. Also, we realize that there are a lot of forms, plastic, metal, paper. We're going to be looking at those forms to make sure that they're clean, and if it's a paper, it should be brand new. We shouldn't see any residue off there. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for either. We're going to examine what you're teaching, whether it's the paper or whether it's the metal or whether it's the plastic form. Want them to remove the shine from the nail plate and then cleanse and dehydrate that nail plate. We want to make sure that they fit that form snugly to the nail and apply the primer to the nail plate. Now, we know that there are some products out there today that don't require a primer. For our examination purposes, we do expect them to prime the nail plate. We want them to sculpt a nail to extend the free edge of the finger that was assigned, and then once that goes through the process, we want them to shape and to file and finish that sculptured nail. One of the things that Milady has added is that they should be using oil as part of that procedure, and we will expect it as well. Actually, both of our textbooks say that now. Yes.
First off, Cosmo doing this 2-minute setup still.
Yes, ma'am.
In that 2-minute setup, we need to clean our station.
No, don't need to clean. This is the same client you've had all since that second setup, so you don't have to.
Perfect. Second question is the dehydrator, or I'm sorry, the primer. It's to be a original primer and it's original.
With a manufacturer's label.
Manufacturer's label.
Yes, ma'am.
And then oil is what you're telling me is.
Yeah, you need,
It's new to me, is that, that's been,
need to use an oil.
and it can do the same thing.
Our textbooks are saying that, too.
Okay, if you, on a cotton swab or cotton wrap or a stick, or just.
Yes, no. I know that oil sometimes comes with a brush, and oils many times will harbor bacteria and allow bacteria to grow versus your polish that has inhibitors in there. So we don't want to see that original brush utilized on the nail plate.
No, that's what I'm saying, a bottle, just like our.
Squeeze bottle, eyedropper, medicine dropper, whatever you want to call it. Q-tip, stick it in there, whatever. Just don't touch the tip. One thing, too, we don't touch the tips of containers, either with our hands or anything else, to make sure that we're not doing that as well. Yes, ma'am. That's all right.
It doesn't say anything about the oil. Is that just, that's something that's a preference, or?
That's the way that they're teaching to do it. We don't train to do everything. We're just saying that's part of the finishing of the nail.
To apply oil
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
cuticle?
To the tip. I mean, to the nail. You usually put oil on there and then buff it. Makes it nice and shiny anyway. Yes?
On the instructions, it says very clearly, the monomer, polymer, and primer has to be in the original container.
Yes, ma'am.
But it doesn't say new.
It has to be, the monomer has to be sealed.
Yeah.
The other products do not have to be
Powder
sealed.
as well?
No, only the monomer has to be sealed with a manufacturer's seal, nothing that you did yourself or that the school did. It has to be in its original manufacturer's seal container.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So that all applies to the Cosmos?
Yes, ma'am.
filtered nail
It's,
too?
yes, ma'am. It's part of the procedure now. So your examiner's going to come over after everybody has turned their hand and pick it up. They're going to look at it. They're going to look pretty much like the same tip that we talked about. Is it round on one side and square on the other? Is there product on the cuticle or the surrounding skin? They're going to feel across the top. They're going to look at it. They're going to run their finger around the frieze. They're going to look up underneath there to see if product got on the hyponychium because that form did not fit well. They're going to do all the things that you would do were you to go have a sculptured nail. Pardon me. They're looking to see that it's balanced, that it's smooth, that it has a nice arc to it, that it's tapered. All of those things, like I said, that you would look for. Looking to see that there's no product on the skin as well. We have a blood exposure procedure here. It's very similar to the aesthetics. The only difference between that is that it's on the thumb of the mannequin hand, and so it will be done the same way. It's unlike the one that is in cosmetology or barbering, but it is the same process of aesthetics, and I'll be glad to go through it if you want me to go through it.
When finished to do the manicure, what that's supposed to be do with the water having the bulb?
Okay, her question was, when you finish the manicure, what are we supposed to do with the water? You've got a roll of paper towels, you've got cloth towels, merely put it in there, absorb that water in there, could put it back into a thermos if you brought it in a thermos, whatever, just dispose of it. Another question, yes, ma'am? No, please.
Probably the same as if the head flies off of your skin. If the nail comes off, you just pick it up, sanitize. and
If the nail comes off,
The nail tip.
oh, if the nail tip
I
comes,
mean, obviously a real gust.
no, if you,
It happened, but we've had some problems with the nails popping
you
off
need
due
to,
to
you need to get
filing.
another one. Yeah, you should bring sufficient supplies for it anyway. You would need to get another tip to apply.
What happened? We fixed the nails on the mannequin end with acrylic, set up forever. It won't come off.
We're using like a carpet glue.
That's our school,
Okay.
our school does that.
You were talking about the original nail plate. Okay.
Yes,
Okay, okay, I got you.
After I'm halfway through, three-fourths of the way, and I'm buffing and filing, and my nail tip falls off to the ground. So I pick that up, I sanitize that, put it back
Can't
on.
reapply it, no.
Okay, so
You would need to
just
switch
spread out
fingers.
with a different finger?
I would switch to another finger.
Okay.
Okay? Another question that you might have?
Actually, I have one question. When the examination has finished, and they have those 3 bags on the floor, you just dump it inside of the big duck bag and go home? Is they still being examined?
No, we're not examining once. We've told you that the exam is over. That concludes the exam. It's concluded. So you can stick them under your arm if you need to. You can tie them together if you need to. But we're finished at that point. Yes, ma'am.
So are you not getting graded on how you dispose of your liquid monomer and your powder polymer?
Those should, of course, be covered before you start your filing.
You should be covered.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But we're not looking to see how they dispose of them. Certainly,
Okay.
a lot of people will go ahead and put,
down if those are not disposed of before they started their filing?
no, they can merely cover them if they'd like to, and then dispose of, and get rid of everything after the blood exposure if they want. They could push those to the side.
The Cosmo, so they get rid of
Oh, yeah. we're still not going to be examining on how they dispose of the monomer or the powder. Okay.
Is there anyone here that teaches electrology? Is there anyone interested in staying for electrology?
I know you guys have had a long day. Thank you so much for being here. It's our pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
And if we can help in any way, please just let us know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. How are you, sir? I'm well. Thank you. I appreciate you staying all day.